Hello and welcome to Books Without Barcodes, where I review books published before 1978, which is when UPC barcodes were mandated and all printed material made available for general sale to the public. The book I will be reviewing today is The Einstein Intersection by Samuel R. Delany. I decided to review this book first this year for my Nebula Award challenge because the other book that Samuel R. Delany published, Babel 17, that also won the Nebula Award, I absolutely adored. I loved it so much I splurged and I bought the Easton Press copy. I was hoping that I would have the same reaction to this book. Now, to be fair, this book starts off amazing. I thought, oh my goodness, Delany has done it again. The beginning of the book, like the first third of the book, is the world building part where he talks about how the world is divided. So the world is divided into functional and non-functional human beings. So functional human beings are then further divided into Lo, La, and Li. So Lo for male, La for female, and then Li for those that are both and neither. Which for the 1960s, that's pretty forward thinking. And then how the society, as far as in Lo Lobi's, who is the main character, the main protagonist, how his village is divided and how it works, and then there's a little bit of an adventure in there, and then he goes and fights a bull at some point at the beginning. So it's very much the beginning of the world building, which feels very forward thinking because it's not just a binary gender norm, and then it also deals with interpersonal relationships that are not heteronormative either. There are orgies to make sure everybody mixes the genes, and having multiple partners is completely normal. And so again, very forward, kind of like Babel 17. And then you get to the second part of the book, which is Lo Lobi going on a solo adventure. And that's also interesting. I'm like, this is great. I see where this is going from the beginning to the end. Something happens at the beginning of the book and it makes the second third of the book where he's going on an adventure to try to discover the thing that he's searching for. And that's also interesting because, again, you learn more about the society outside of Lo Lobi's individual village. And then we get to the third part of the book, where to me it reads like Delany went to a science convention where they were discussing the latest discovery in Einstein's theory of relativity and Gödel's latest developments in his constructible universe, and decided to drop some acid and is like, you know what? Now I'm going to finish the rest of this. And it just loses me. Completely loses me. Like, if you decide to read this for yourself, when you get to Branning at Sea, which is the city, the whole book is good up until we get to the part where they finally get to Branning at Sea, which is the city, which is where the main conflict is supposed to finally happen. Just once you get to Branning at Sea, stop reading the book and make up your own idea as to what happens. And I guarantee you, whatever you think is going to happen in your head will be 100% better than what is written in the book. It just so clever to the point where it's dumb. So this is my second Delany. And one of the criticisms of Delany is that he tends to get in his own way, or he tends to write for the sake of writing. And it's not coherent or connective to his audience at all. And this is my first time experiencing that. Like, I now understand what booktube means when they say that Delany just gets in his own way. And that's the third part of this book. It's just it's not clever. It's like you're trying so hard and you're getting lost in the sauce. And I didn't like it. I also, something that kept bothering me, it's like throughout the book, there are, at the beginning of every chapter throughout this book, there are excerpts. So there, you have the beginning of the chapter and the whole first page of the chapter is just random excerpts. It seemingly just to show you how well-read Delany is. It's like, we know you're a smart man. He's a brilliant man. He's a good writer. Like I said, the first 2/3 of the book, great. You don't have to prove to us at the beginning of every chapter that you are a well-read man. We get that. And the thing is like, I feel like he was trying to put excerpts in the beginning of each chapter that added to the story or foreshadowed what was going to happen in that chapter. But it just took me out of the story. I didn't like it. Like most of them, once I got about 1/3 of the way through the book, I just skipped them because I was just like, I don't like this. Like it is a device that a lot of authors do use. I do have a few books in my collection where that happens, but it'll be like one passage, one short passage or one quote at the beginning of a chapter, and then they won't do it again for a while. But to have 2 or 3 quotations at the beginning of every chapter, and then some of them are the entire first page of the chapter, it's just like, are you trying just to make the book longer? I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the last third of the book. I do appreciate the fact that Delany is so forward for his time in the 60s and in his writing of the 60s, that a lot of it feels exceptionally contemporary when you're reading it. Like the first, 2/3 of the book honestly felt like it could have been written now with the concepts, the social concepts that he was dealing with and included in his world building. The problem is that in this book in particular, he decides to make too many contemporary, for his time, allusions to current pop culture, which as we get further away from 1967, modern audience aren't going to know who those people are. Unless, a couple of references in here. If you are a film school student, then you would know some of the references. But otherwise, you're not going to know most of the people he's referencing in this. There are some, classic mythology figures, then of course we're going to know who Einstein is. He's made such a grand contribution to society that is going to continue to be learned going forward for at least another 100 years, I believe. So there's that. It at that point it dates the book in an icky way. The other thing that bothered me about this book, in addition to the acid trip of the third part of the book, and then the quotations, there's 2 spelling errors in this book, which is like, it defeats the point of being super clever. I also got a 1967 copy of the book. This is a 1967 copy of the book signed by Samuel R. Delany himself. But there are 2 spelling errors in that 1967 copy. One of them was the very beginning of the book, where he types where it's bear, but it's meant to be bore, so it's a 1-letter difference. So instead of E, it was supposed to be O. And that, like, yes, I'm that pedantic in my reading to where, like, if I'm reading a book and then the next sentence in the book doesn't relate to the first sentence, I'm like, oh, that's a spelling error. That's supposed to be a bore, not bear, because the paragraph doesn't make sense if that's a bear with the rest of it. And the second spelling error is burn, but not B-U-R-N, because he's referring to Paul Byrne, which is a person, in relation to Jean Harlow, which is another person, and both of them were heavily involved in turn of the 20th century movies, like the silent movie era. And he spells it B-U-R-N, and his name is spelled B-E-R-N. So that was another thing where I was like, does he mean... I was trying to figure out if he was referring to Paul Burns, which would be B-U-R-N-S, or B-E-R-N, because I didn't know if it was missing an S or if it was supposed to be an E instead of a U. And then when I reread that paragraph and I realized that it was supposed to be in relation to Jean Harlow, I was like, all right, this is Paul Byrne, which was the last husband of Jean Harlow. That makes sense, but it's still a spelling error. And yes, I do read like that. That's the way I personally read. It almost makes me want to read the other Nebula Award. So, okay, to be fair, this is the second year the Nebula Awards occurred. So the first year the Nebula Award winner was Dune. But for this to be the second year of the Nebula Awards, and this is the book that wins with 2 spelling errors, I want to read, kind of want to read the rest of the nominees for this year to figure out why. Why this book? Why did this book win? I'm getting like heated because I'm frustrated. I guess I'm flustered because I felt like I had so much excitement and hope at the first third of this book. I was like, yes, this is going to be another one where it's like, I cannot believe this was written in 1967. This feels just so contemporary and so forward thinking and just brilliant for the time period. And then to get that far to the end and just suddenly have the ball dropped. And then for there to be 2 spelling mistakes in the book, which might have been corrected in later iterations of the book. I'm not sure. I have the 1967 copy, so I don't know if those got corrected, but I just so disappointed. And again, now I totally understand why people on BookTube say that Delany gets in his own way. So I've experienced it now. Now don't feel like I don't want to read any more Delany. Like I said, Babel 17, I know how good Delany can be. I love Babel 17. It is one of my favorite vintage sci-fi books I have ever read. So at this point, I need to find a copy of Nova and read it, because I feel like that Babel 17 and Nova are the 2 books that he is most known for. So I feel like I need to find another copy and hope that that redeems it, and it's just, this is not for me. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully I will see you in the next video. Until then, bye. Bye.